There's a giant.
Hi guys, welcome to my channel, The Magical Solution. My name is Leilani. We are live here on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook to talk about pop culture commissions. And I have a very special guest with me tonight, my hubby,
Hi.
Archie.
I don't know which camera to look at.
You just don't.
They're all
You just look at this one,
kind of in
and
the
then like
same place.
sometimes look at these. Hi, Joy. Oh my goodness. So there's gonna be a bunch of people on all these different platforms. Don't get confused, because that's what ends up happening to me as I look at
Dear
all of them.
Instagram and TikTok, I'm sorry. I'm gonna be
Just kind of
actively ignoring
just like
you
this the
for
whole
most of
time.
the night. I'll be here in this one,
Like that.
staring directly at this light here, unblinkingly. Never break.
Hi, Mel.
Never break.
Hello. Oh my goodness. Well, okay, so this apparently seems to be a very popular topic, and it actually is.
Well, it is pop culture. Popular culture. Oh man, popular culture sure seems to be popular.
But so today we're talking about pop culture commissions, but the whole point of kind of bringing this subject to the forefront is there is a lot of discussion in the spiritual community about this subject in particular. We have this idea of tradition. We have this idea of what should be considered spirits and what shouldn't be considered spirits. And this idea of pop culture spirits is a hotly debated subject. Like, can we consider them spirits? Can we not consider them spirits? So instead, today, I said, you know what? Let's have a discussion about it. And the reason why I brought my wonderful husband on is because he actually knows a lot more about the pop culture aspect of it versus me knowing more about the spiritual aspect.
Yeah, we were talking about this. It's basically she spent high school being outside and getting attention from people of the opposite sex.
That's not
and I didn't. I spent high school inside being ignored viciously by the opposite sex. And so I got way into all the nerd culture. And so now it's Revenge of the Nerds has come, and now nerd culture reigns supreme.
It's true. No, it is true. It's true. And like, it's one of those things where like now I regret when all of my little cousins used to be like, Leilani, come play video games with us. And I'm like, no.
I do too, because I want to game with you.
And so now I kind of regret it because I see all of these gamers out here, and God forbid you give me a remote control. I have no idea what I'm doing.
No, we tried. It's I bought a second controller because I wanted so bad to game with you. And we tried to play Unravel 2, which some of you all might know. Maybe it's a very cute little game with two little yarn characters. And it's like physics puzzles, basically. And
I don't think you guys understand the rage that exists within me.
30 minutes in, she's just like, no, this is stupid. We keep going back to the same place. Every time we fail, it doesn't just teleport you to the next level. We have to actually do things.
Yeah, no, it's infuriating.
Yeah.
And like, I'll watch him play video games with his friends, right? Like, he plays this cooking game.
Overcooked 2.
Overcooked. And I'm like, why are you working? That is work. You are not getting paid for this.
For those of you who don't, it's like a
They're
kitchen
cooking.
game. It's like you have like
I don't get it.
Weirdly, so you're two chefs or multiple chefs in a kitchen.
And it's very stressful.
Yeah, the ingredients are laid out terribly.
It's crazy.
So
I don't understand. But anyway, that's the nerd world that he's a part of. That I don't understand. And so I called him on to tonight's show to kind of give that sort of, pop culture perspective. So the video games, the comic books, the movies, all of those things, I feel we need to sort of see where these gaps are, see how we can kind of bridge these two things together. Mm-hmm. So I guess the first thing I want to say to you guys before we even get started, let me kind of push this way, because I'm seeing here on TikTok that we're not quite in the scene. Are we in the scene? I don't know. Sorry, TikTok. Y'all are going to get totally abused today.
We do have filters on them. My jawline doesn't look good.
But I wanted to say to you guys first, before we even jump into this, is that surprise, it's going to stay public. So we're just going to stream it everywhere. And this will be the very first video, public as in you do not have to join the Patreon in order to see this. That's what that means. However, this is the first video that is going to exemplify what kinds of videos will be on my Patreon. And so this is going to be sort of like the public tease. So congratulations, everyone gets to keep it.
This is that free sample.
It's that free sample, if you will.
The next one gonna cost you.
Oh my God!
I think they're doing some.
We heard like this crazy sound that sounded like someone just ripped one, and I was like, "Whoa, where was that?"
Someone ripped one at hyper speed.
So yeah, let's get this started. So the very first thing, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. This is one of those subjects that is so vast, and I mean, like, we can go absolutely anywhere with it. So please, 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 if you have comments, if you have suggestions, if you have something you want, like a direction you want us to go, drop a comment into the live. We will try our best to make sure we catch them. And we will try our best to incorporate them into the conversation. So first and foremost, I think where we need to start is this idea of like the chicken and the egg, right? Like what came first, the man or the myth, right? And I want to say that because
in what context? The man or the myth, like in as a whole, or like in terms of pop culture versus?
Well, right now, spirituality. I'm going to talk about it in terms of spirituality, and then I'll ask, and then I'll pull you in with pop culture. But in terms of the spiritual stuff, it's kind of like this idea of, you know, what came first. When we start to think about the gods that many of us work with, because let's be real, in the spiritual community, we're usually talking about individuals who oftentimes believe in pantheons. So many, many gods, right? But when we talk about that, it's like you go back into the history, you go back into their myths, you go back into their stories, and you start to see certain like parallels of the way the people live, like their lifestyles and the stories that they wrote about their gods. And you begin to ask yourself, like, are they writing about themselves? Are these gods separate entities? Did these gods first create the humans that then wrote the stories about the gods? Or were the gods not a thing? Humans were a thing first and then created the stories that then created the gods. So it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg type of thing? And it sort of begs this question. Hi, mommy. Hi. This is the first time that one of us here, that we're both here.
Like, what's going on?
Like, you guys, one of you is always paying attention to me. So so she definitely needs to see what's going on. So yeah, that's my question to you guys. That's going to be kind of like my initial thought is like, what do you think came first? Do you think the gods came first and then the people who documented the gods? Or do you think people were always here and then and then we created the gods through the myths, right? And the reason why this initial question pops off is because we watched a movie a couple years ago that I absolutely adored. And it was called, what was it called? The one with like Odin and the old gods.
The show, you mean?
The show.
Not the movie.
What's the name of the show?
American
Gods.
The show.
American Gods.
Based on the novel.
Based on the novel. And it was so juicy and good. And if you haven't seen it, please go see it.
Yeah, Neil Gaiman. Enough.
Yes.
Just everything the man touches is gold. Go check out literally anything Neil Gaiman does. You'll be blown away. And he does a lot of stuff with pantheons and gods and like
he does
various like fantastical like deities and stuff. So Neil Gaiman,
that's the dude.
If you're interested in any kind of like spiritual pop culture, awesome stuff. Great
stories. I love it, and that's I think where I wanted to start, because it kind of gives you that inkling, it gives you that question of like, which one did come first? Because when he's talking about these gods and when he's, expressing them and giving them their life, there's a certain point in the show where you start to realize, oh, okay, it really does depend on us. It really does. Like our belief and our rituals, our work towards these spirits is what keeps them alive.
Yeah.
And the minute we stop doing that, they no longer exist.
Yeah, so this is a concept that's covered really, really well in that show. And I think in the show it's really beautifully illustrated too. And I think the first episode of like the progression of a god, of like a nomadic people and the deity that they worship, and then how ideas change and how like that deity then gets kind of left in the forest and eventually disintegrates. And it's gods are powered and created by belief. So like gods die when no one remembers them anymore.
Right.
And and in this series they also are dealing with modern times as well. So they have new gods coming up, which is like the god of like cell phone and technology, tech boy, and media, who is the god of media and just our consumption, our fascination with media. The amount of energy that we pour into consuming media, that we're producing media right now, talking about, we're making media about media that people are now consuming. So it's like so many levels. And yeah, that level of energy and thought that you're putting into it elevates these concepts to godhood. If at a certain point of feeding them that belief, they become powerful enough to become that those concepts can become gods. And old gods also embrace new technologies to maintain relevance. Like the I think it's like the Babylonian goddess of love gets on Tinder, like gets a little bit of help from the tech boy and gets on Tinder, and she's able to find lots of people to
a new set of worshipers.
Transport into weird nether realm. That's a whole other scene, y'all. Weird, interesting. And then they're all, and Vulcan, the god of war, who is now super, 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 super popular because every bullet fired is a prayer in his name. Basically, he's a weapons manufacturer.
Oh my gosh!
Yes. And every bullet has Vulcan Industries printed on it, so every bullet fired is a prayer in the name of the god of war in this universe. So like, how they can use these things to then create more belief. Or another Neil Gaiman, Good Omens.
Good Omens,
which is
so
also great,
good.
where a demon has basically created a giant demonic sigil out of the London highway.
Right.
Like the London highway, like the highway that surrounds London was designed in a way to create a giant demonic sigil around the city, basically. And then it gets activated at one point, know, and it's just like, holy shit, that's like an amazing idea, actually, So yeah.
Which brings me, like, I mean, and that we'll get into that in a minute, because like I can't even get into like all the different rituals and the different spells and the different things that these movies and these video games and these novels come up with that we then utilize in our real spiritual stuff. But we'll get into that in a second. But I love how Neil Gaiman and a lot of these other avenues of pop culture not only sort of reimagine the old gods, but then sort of mix them into worlds with new gods. So you see this in the Marvel stuff with like Thor and Odin, and you see, but they're in there right alongside Iron Man and Captain America and all these other quote unquote new gods that we have.
Right.
You know, and I love that mixture and being able to create these worlds from those mixtures. So it's a nice way of saying we don't have to get rid of the old gods. We just need to remember that new gods are constantly being created and that we are the curators or the creators of our culture. You know what I'm saying? Oh, that happens.
Did TikTok
all the time.
just break out for a second?
Yeah.
Sorry. I get distracted. I'm sorry.
But yeah, so people before gods, that's some of the ones that we got in terms of the comments.
I think we're,
Right.
Oh, where did someone say that?
So that's what I love. Stay focused.
You're so good at like this is so
because I do this all the time.
You're very good at this.
It's interesting that you said God, not superhero. Oh, Joy, that's a great comment. So it's interesting that we said God and not superhero. So here's that other piece of it too, because it's like what constitutes a god versus a superhero, right? And in some cases, what we see is that, like for example, Thor would be considered a god. He was never human. He was born a god, right? Okay, this is where the expertise comes in because I don't know.
It's like,
but I'm assuming gods are not humans. They're never born human.
It's kind of a manifestation it's in the original comics and stuff. It originally is more of like a manifestation into like it's more of like a person comes across like an artifact that then transforms them and imbues them with the energy of this god.
So then where does like, for example,
and then like later on it gets kind of more retconned into just like, you know, Asgardians being a whole other race and being that like aliens basically according to the Marvel universe, you know,
right?
And just so like that's kind of a whole other thing. So it's kind of a back and forth, you know. There's gonna be some nerds out there who are gonna be like, actually, Thor started out as an actual explorer, and so we want to definitely, you know, I know
it's okay,
but it's been retconned. He is full on like a godlike alien now. We're gonna go with basically MCU for all the actual like nerds who might be watching this. We're gonna stick with MCU continuity, the comic continuity, the historical continuity. We're just gonna kind of acknowledge it at points, but we'll stick to MCU. That's what everybody knows now. So that's really the main one. All right.
So that was totally Chinese to me, MCU. Like, I don't know what any of that meant.
Marvel Cinematic Universe.
But my point is that
the
question of what constitutes God versus superhuman, I think is a really, really, really great comment, because we go through, this is exactly the whole point of the mythos, right? So we go through these elevations, if you will. You know, you have people who get bit by a spider. You know, you have people that goes through some sort of like journey, and
it's always the hero's journey.
The hero's journey
is
Joseph
very
Campbell.
much there in all of the things.
In all
the same
of these
thing,
stories.
and I mean, like literally, there's, you know, like the same thing that you have in all the mythos of like Jason, the Argonauts, and Hercules, and the Labors, and Hercules, who also became a Disney character and also a Marvel character coming up soon, Roy Kent. And
so it's this idea that human, superhuman, godhood is not necessarily different, but stages of a process. And so, you know, we can ultimately safely say, when we talk about a lot of these comic, you know, characters, a lot of these video game characters, we can safely say, yeah, these are gods. But in this particular video, we're going to kind of put everybody in the same category as spirits. Because remember, we're talking about Espiritismo, and we're talking about the commissions of Espiritismo. So for those of you who are joining us and have never heard of Espiritismo, never heard of commissions, it's this idea. It is this idea. Oh my God, she's like so lovey right now. It's this idea that what a spiritualist who works with several spirits will organize their spirits in different categories. And these categories are called commissions or courts. And so each category is a very vast category in and of itself, right? So we have an elemental category. And in that category, there are spirits of trees, spirits of flowers, spirits of the elements, etc., etc. Where the argument comes in, and why this video is so important, is that there is an argument of whether or not we should incorporate pop culture and turn it into its own commission, its own category of spirits.
Yeah.
And I'm saying yes.
You know where
I'm saying, you know where yes.
I'm
saying you have every damn right to make Batman one of your spirits. You have
Batman
every
is
damn
definitely
right.
a spirit of Batman is a spirit of vengeance.
You know what I'm saying?
You cannot tell me that.
You can't. So it's one of those things. Now, again, so going back full circle, what constitutes a spirit? What makes them something worthy enough to be called on? How does their powers work? How can they be utilized in the work? All of that I'm going to answer as we kind of go through these different examples and have fun talking about these different, you know, pop culture identities and whatnot. And so again, if you have questions or if you have suggestions or if there's a particular comic book character or a particular, you know, story that you like, make sure that you definitely comment. I don't know what her problem is today, but she is so fucking lovely today.
She's being a needy.
Yes. So Perez, amazing comment. So a lot of times these commissions are typically associated with either a trade or an ethnicity, which is true. A lot of our commissions are associated with that. But many of the commissions are starting to expand even beyond that. And so that's why pop culture is such a hot button subject these days, right? How many of you guys, think that Santa Claus is a spirit? And if that's a spirit that you can confidently say, yeah, we write petitions to him every year with our wishes. We have a ritual where we decorate a tree.
True.
We leave offerings of milk and cookies.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We have to have a certain type of conduct and behavior in order to receive accountability in order to receive the blessings of this spirit. So all of that is the same shit that we would do with any of our other commissions. And he would be considered kind of that whole thing that we were talking about earlier. What comes first, the myth of the man, right? Because Santa Claus is a complicated figure. He isn't just a pop culture figure. He's also based on different characters too. We have stories of Saint Nick. We have stories of Father Time. We have stories of Father Christmas. We have stories of even the possibility of Jesus being some type of Santa Claus figure in some cultures. So it's really like this roundabout idea of what these spirits are, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, right? It's the belief. It's how we approach these spirits. I think that matters, right? Oh my God, she's so distracting. Like I literally can't even think straight. A spirit of the holiday. Exactly.
What is pop culture though? It's so much. It's true. Also, I was wondering, so like in terms of like the Santa example that you gave, I really liked that, but so I'm curious, like, okay, like Iron Man, what would you do? Like, I don't know if anybody really does those things with like Iron Man, like leaves offerings or writes petitions or,
Yeah,
like, so
well, that's the thing.
How would that go?
So I think this is also where the culture does the work, right? So like, for example,
is it just you taking that thing because you identify with it and then doing those same actions, but towards this entity or towards this idea?
It could be that. It could very well be that. And again, culture depends on the person who has these beliefs. So like, for example, I have a dear friend who is obsessed, absolutely obsessed with Disney characters, Disney princesses, right? And their love of Disney and these princesses and these spirits allows her the ability to then look at these movies, look at these princesses, look at the songs that are being sung, the rituals and the spells that are being done as something that she can then utilize in her work. And here's the thing, and because these Disney films are then followed and loved and believed in by millions and millions of children, it already has that energy backing. It already has that support, that essence that exists just by the sheer volume of people who watch it, believe in it, buy the merchandise, dress up in the costumes, etc., etc. And so by simply taking a song from a Disney movie or taking a prayer from over here and incorporating into it already has that energy to it.
Okay.
And so for something like, Iron Man, it would kind of be the same thing. Iron Man is one of the most popular Marvel characters out there. Thousands and thousands of adults and children.
So it'd be what, like if you're an inventor?
So like if you're someone who is an aspiring inventor, if you're someone who loves technology,
Stark, right.
You would invoke Tony Stark.
Inspired by, right.
Exactly. And maybe the offering for Tony Stark might be some alcohol. I don't know, whatever he liked in his movies, whatever his thing was. You know what I'm saying? So that's for you guys to know, because again, not a nerd, don't know.
Yeah, maybe 2 fingers of scotch.
You know what I'm saying? But it's this kind of mindset, this type of
alcoholic.
Do you give an alcohol to it?
So
Yeah,
it's a little
exactly.
bit
You don't.
tricky there.
Nah, you definitely don't.
Maybe some microprocessors.
some trash computers.
Some Raspberry Pi chips at the altar.
But you know what I'm saying? So it really opens up a whole avenue of creativity for people. And I mean, let's let's not even play dumb. Every single one of y'all right now who's watching this, who also happens to love tarot, don't tell me that you don't have a novelty tarot deck somewhere. I have a GOT tarot deck. I have an Edgar Allan Poe tarot deck. I have tarot decks of all various kinds of pop culture things, and they work. They're very effective.
Got tarot decks all over the house. Everywhere.
There's tarot decks everywhere.
I bought her so many cases to try to keep them organized.
Still not enough. Still not enough, you guys.
Oh my god.
But yeah.
Can't stop, won't stop.
Hello, GWP. Drop your name, you guys, because I don't know everyone, and I don't want to just use your screen name. I mean, unless unless it's like a privacy thing. But yeah, drop your names, drop your locations. Where are you commenting from? You know,
my alchemy card. Somebody said Mel mentioned her
alchemy cards. Yes.
And Joy said Disney princesses are reinvented folklore. So,
yes, they're reinvented.
Great point.
Exactly. Again, what came first? The myth. It's like this constant recycling. Because let's be real, even in the video games, when we see characters that are witches, vampires, magicians, we're seeing people take old concepts and reinventing them, or pushing the envelope even further. Because I will say, some of those video games where you talk about some of the spells and some of the potions and stuff, I'm like, get the fuck out of here! Like that's so cool.
Some of it is actually accurate,
and it's so accurate.
Some of it is actually pretty accurate to like the current understandings of like spiritual realms and stuff. So, for instance, like one of my absolute favorite series, trilogy, fourth game coming soon, Dragon Age, that has like a rich, deep mythology. There's multiple different races of characters in the game. So there's dwarves, there's elves, there's I think there's like trolls and stuff, but there's dwarves, elves, people. There's Kunari, which is a very fascinating group, which is a very fascinating, culture. And they all have like their own explanation of why magic exists in the world, but also why the world isn't more magical, and why spirits don't just wander the world freely, and they have this concept. The concept is the veil, is that at some point a god cut those two worlds and separated them deliberately, created a boundary between the veil and the world, which is also the understanding that we have. Yeah. And people in the waking world can still access the magical world, the fade, which is beyond the veil. They can access the fade through either dreaming or acts of extreme concentration, or occasionally magical spells that physically transport them there. However, if a spirit, while you're in the fade, detects that you're actually not just dreaming, they might try to possess you because they want to experience and taste the waking world for themselves. So you have to be very careful when you're traversing the fade. But you could also ask spirits for help in the fade, because they can physically manipulate the world in there, whereas you can't. You can't manipulate objects or anything in this world. And so you could ask spirits for help, but then you have to be careful because they might have their own motives.
That sounds just like the astral.
Right.
That sounds just like the astral.
And also places where there is extreme violence or trauma or death especially have little tears in the veil, like where there's like a physical, like just kind of like a little like lightning portal just floating around in the world, which is just, and often on battlefields, usually historically within the history of this universe,
it's true,
on battlefields of extreme death and pain and suffering, there's tears in the veil, and sometimes spirits can pour through from them.
And we can see that here as well, in our real life world. When you go to places like, what is it, Petersburg, the Civil War battlefields and stuff like that.
Gettysburg.
Petersburg. Listen to me. I'm so fucking. I'm like so not here today. I swear to God. I was this close to rescheduling today. But yeah, I know. I'm so flighty. I'm a flighty
always
baby.
Mess up the names in the funniest way.
Oh my God.
It's
what was the name of the cookie that I called? What did I call it?
Knickerbocker.
A Knickerbocker. When I meant to say a snickerdoodle.
Yeah. We were with friends, and she's like Knickerbocker, and I got it though. I was like,
yeah,
I think you mean Snickerdoodle.
Yeah,
and that's why, because there's someone for everyone.
There is someone for everyone, and it's usually one crazy person and one normal person.
We understand each other.
But yeah, so like Gettysburg, or if you go to houses where there was a lot of murder and stuff like that, oftentimes it will be haunted, or you will have a lot of spirit activity. So it really makes a lot of sense in terms of these ideas of like the terror in the veil, and having only certain access to that kind of world when you enter it is the same thing as the astral. You have limitations when you go into the astral realm. You're not fully 100% in your space. Obviously, it's like, think of anything. You are not a creature of the ocean. So when you go in the ocean, you best believe that you got to play by the ocean's rules, right? It's the same concept. A fish cannot play in the same rules when they're on land. So it's that kind of stuff. And it's just amazing to see these video games, these comic books, these movies, really, really taking a lot of magical history, occult history, and just sort of reimagining it and creating new characters and creating new types of spells and new types of potions and new types of stuff. Like, it is absolutely phenomenal to me. It really is. And I think it's an untapped area of energy.
Or like the eldritch horrors, like all the Cthulhu and everything. Those ideas come up in like fantasy video games a lot. There's often mages that have like powers of necromancy or whatever, who may have a tome of the Necronomicon on them, or pray to like Cthulhu, or there's like characters like, for instance, in Baldur's Gate 3, which I'm playing right now, which is in the Dungeons and Dragons universe. That is, there's the Mind Flayers, which some of y'all might also be familiar with from Stranger Things, which has an intersection with Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
And so the Mind Flayers, who are, very Cthulhu inspired.
There's never enough Oracle dice in tarot. There isn't. It's true. And another thing too. So another type of spirit, pop culture spirit, that you and we are all guilty of not only creating, because we very much created them and perpetuated them, are our urban legends. Let's not forget our urban legends. Slender Man was an urban legend. Now everybody sees that motherfucker. Everybody sees that motherfucker now, right? Hat Man, right? The tall, dark man with the man? No, it's a totally different guy, but like, he's the one that's usually at the end of your bed, like talking to you, like, it's, anyway, my point is that these, or what's the thing where you go into the bathroom and you turn off all the lights and you look into the mirror and you try and kill Bloody Mary, right? So like, these are all urban legends, and these are urban legend spirits that we created, then perpetuated with rituals. And those rituals were usually done at some kind of middle school sleepover party, right? With a bunch of kids that just want to fuck around with the occult. And then every year, it just gets stronger. The Candyman, thank you very much.
Candyman, that was, yes.
Right? But don't tell me that you don't go into the dark web, or you don't go into these like weird Reddit spaces and read these stories of people being like, no, but it's real. I had this experience, and no, but it's real. I did this and this happened. Right? So it begs the question once again, who comes first? You know what I'm saying? And where does this power lie in terms of this creativity, in terms of creating spirits, literally creating spirits from nothing except our own imagination, and then giving them life with years and years of repetition, years and years of emotional fuel, whether that's fear, love, curiosity, admiration, whatever the case may be, years and years and years of that. Where does that line get drawn?
Yeah, there's I was just thinking about this incredible comic book series. I forget the name is on the tip of my tongue. I want to say it's Fables, but I know that that's also a video game, and so
I think you're right.
But there's a comic book series where literally fairy tale characters now live on a magical block in New York in like a building, because they had to escape their world because Geppetto became a tyrant.
Oh shit.
Geppetto became a tyrant and made indestructible armies of automaton puppets, and is like a tyrant of the fairy tale kingdom. So like there was a mass exodus of fairy tale characters to the real world. And of all these fairy tale characters, Jack is actually doing the best because he's Jack of Tales and he's in so many stories that he cannot be killed.
Yes, that makes so much
sense. And it's
sense.
basically like the more stories you're in, the stronger you are. So like the big bad wolf is pretty fucking strong, and he's the cop in this in this new existence. He plays a cop. He's not a bad wolf. He's the big good wolf. He's the cop, right?
Yes.
And so he's pretty strong, but he's not necessarily. But like Jack is the strongest and literally is immortal. Jack is immortal because Jack is in all the tales. Jack of Tales is in every tale, and Jack actually basically leaves and goes to Hollywood and becomes like even more popular and famous and stars in multiple movies of Jack of the Tales, and so that he cements his immortality even further.
Wow. And that's crazy. You know, it's funny because so we live in New York and Sleepy Hollow is like 5 minutes away from here pretty much. And like every year there are countless, you know, retellings or what do you call it? Like reenactments of the Headless Horseman and all that, Ichabod Crane. And you will hear children or you will hear people saying, "Oh, I'm walking down the streets and I can hear the horses, you know, galloping, you know, across the bridge." You know damn well ain't nothing there, but is there? But is there though? But is there? We don't know. We don't know. The same thing about like little kids hearing Santa's sleigh on Christmas Eve in the middle of the night. You know, so these things they come alive, right? And those of us who are still on the fence about this pop culture thing, let's talk about ghosts for a second.
You know, I just had I'm so sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I just had a thought that I was just like, you know, also with like Santa and everything, even if there is no Santa, like you as a parent eating the cookies, even if Santa's not eating the cookies, you as a parent eating the cookies are acting as an agent. You're acting as a minister of this spirit. You know, like you're or
are you not channeling
I don't know what
your inner Santa?
I don't know what the word is, a pastor, a minister, or an evangelist of the spirit, or whatever, or an acolyte of the spirit, whatever it is. But you're working to perpetuate the belief in the spirit. You're working to keep it alive.
Exactly. And so those of you who might still be on the fence with regards to this pop culture commission and with regards to whether or not you might want to take this seriously, I definitely want to kind of talk a little bit about ghosts, because those of us who understand how ghosts work in this world, how entities and attachments and causes happen in this world, especially in Espiritismo, that's part of our job, is to, you know, to remove those things, to heal those things, to elevate those things. And one of the things that we notice a lot, right, is that we'll get called because someone's house is haunted, right? And it's affecting everyone in the house. Things are falling over, people are getting scratched, you know, things are opening and shutting on their own, lights are turning on and off on their own, right? And when you go there to investigate, what you end up finding out is that there is no ghost at all, but instead a very, very toxic family environment where there's a lot of fighting happening, a lot of violence happening, a lot of energy that is being imbued into those spaces, which eventually begins to manifest an entity, what we call a poltergeist. And this poltergeist, in its essence, it becomes a life of its own because of the energies that are being fueled and being, you know, expressed in that small space for a very long period of time. And so a lot of us end up coming in and going, sorry, we're not here to remove a spirit, because we may remove it now, but it'll only resurface in a few months because you guys are going to keep being the way that you are. So instead, our prescription for you is to go to family therapy. You know what I'm saying? And that's a tough pill to swallow, but there's a reality to that, because we understand that spirits can be created, causes can be created, attachments that oftentimes people think, oh, something's attached to me, or oh, someone sent me a spirit, or oh, someone cursed me. It's really your own bullshit that has then manifested into something that is now plaguing you.
But is it creating the spirit, or is it just creating an environment where the spirit is naturally drawn to?
It can be both.
Kind of.
It can be both.
Like, is it kind of like that whole places of trauma and the veil thing, where because of all this tension, spirits are now able to come through because there's the fabric is weakening because of all this tension?
It can definitely.
Or
be
is
both.
it like, is it actually like your trauma is literally creating a new entity?
It can definitely be both. It's more likely that you're creating your own issues, because a lot of times these environments that we're talking about, where it creates a terror, if you will, that still requires you to call forth something from those spaces. So it's not just that there's toxicity in the space,
but
that all of a
calling
sudden
forth is not the same thing as creating.
No. I'm talking about two different things. So you have the creating part, which is happening just simply by your own emotions, infighting, violence. That stirs up, that creates static in the air, if you will, negative static in the air. And that static, over years and years and years of being pumped into that space, starts to coalesce into solid matter, if you will, or solid fluid, if you will, of a spirit. And then that spirit eventually becomes its own entity and can then start fucking with you, plaguing you, knocking things over, scratching, things like that. So that's the creation that I'm talking about. The other piece that you were talking about is, when you have a lot of violence, a lot of trauma, a lot of stuff in a space, it does create a tear in the fabric of reality, which can allow entities from the other side to pass through. But what I'm saying is that's rarer than the previous, because those entities that can come through still kind of need to be called. You still kind of need to like reach out or be experimenting with the occult or be doing something that will attract them, because they're not just attracted by the negative energies. They are more often than not called in. So this is why when you have a negative environment like that, and then all of a sudden you have a 16-year-old in the upstairs room playing with a Ouija board, that's when you have doubly the problems, right? That's when you have doubly the problems. But and that takes time to investigate. That takes time, because not everybody is going to be honest in those situations. No one wants to put their business out there, and so the investigation of those cases are really, really important. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic. Let's not even get into that. But that's all. But it kind of shows a really good example of how a spirit can manifest from technically nothing except your feelings, your behaviors, you know what I'm saying? And ritualized feelings, behaviors. Excessive energy being placed into something over and over and over again. Right? We talk about this in our classes about sacred space, right? When you create a sacred space, it's not just about creating a circle of salt and, praying into the space to be sacred. It's about continuous use of that space for the purpose of sacred things, so that eventually, in time, with that repetition, with those emotions, with those prayers, with that ritual, in time, the space will then become sacred to the point where you don't have to then go in and create a circle. It just is that. And it's the same thing with those churches. So like we went to the Taj Mahal, we went to all those places in India. You can feel the vibratory difference when you step into those buildings versus when you're standing outside looking at them. Completely different vibe. You know what I'm saying?
But I mean, the Taj Mahal is not a religious building.
You get what I'm saying, though, right? He's so fucking literal, and it just drives me absolutely mad. You get what I'm saying, though. Like, religious buildings, religious places, spiritual places, places of admiration, that kind of stuff. Right?
Okay.
Oh my gosh. So that's exactly what you were talking about with regards to like the veil and stuff. I know. Yeah, Mel is laughing at you.
I like to think she's laughing with me.
I love my roomie dad. Yep.
Oh, I read that very differently at first from a distance.
What did you think it was? Oh no! What did you think it
I
was?
don't think I should say it live.
Say it.
I thought she said I love. Initially, I read it and I thought it said I love my rum dick. And I was like, hey, you do you, man. You know? That's cool. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
So,
From a distance, a little slightly dyslexic.
No, I totally get it. But so another thing that I found interesting too. So when we talk about things in the spiritual community, a lot of times we use this language of like dead religion versus living religion, or dead tradition versus living traditions, right? And usually these concepts are spoken of in terms of, does something have an unbroken chain of worship and of doing it? And if there was at any point a broken chain, a broken piece where it then had to be
then it's a
dead religion, revived or whatever. Right. Okay. So a lot of times when we talk about like the Greek pantheon and the Norse pantheon and all these different pantheons, here in America specifically, because we can't really speak on it in terms of in their original places, they would be considered like dead religions versus traditions that are unbroken from inception of time for that particular religion. So
all so all dead practices are still,
they can still be practiced.
No dead practice is actually, I'm just thinking of the word dead practice. I'm like, if it's a dead practice, then you wouldn't be talking about it because we've forgotten it. Right. There's no record of it and it's truly died.
It's really outdated terminology, but that's just how they label it.
Got it.
But the point is that it still can be practiced today, but what will happen is you're practicing sort of a reinvention of it. Right. So like no one really knows how the ancient Greeks worshipped their gods. Right. Like there's some reinvention, there's some hypotheses, there's a couple of philosophies that kind of came through that can kind of give us droplets. We don't know specifically how each god was worked with and stuff like that. So like this is where this idea of it being kind of like a dead religion kind of coming in, right? Whereas if you were to go to, the Odisha tradition, it's an unbroken chain. This is an oral tradition that has lasted from even through slavery. They managed to bring it with them and talk about it. So we know how each god, each spirit is worked with, and we know those traditions, right? So my point in bringing this up is that pop culture has allowed these quote unquote dead religions to once again come into the forefront and be reinvented and re-looked at and reestablished and get a new sort of refreshing sense of belief. So like the Nordic religions, the Egyptian religions, like there's a lot.
The Nordic religions and the Nordic mythology in particular, I feel like really there was a couple of years where it really had a moment. There was a couple of different like the Vikings, and there was like a couple of different like Viking and Nordic themed shows kind of around the same time.
Everybody was simping for Thor.
It was a couple of things. Plus MCU came with Thor. Huge. I mean that did a lot for the revival of the Nordic mythology. And then also Assassin's Creed Valhalla came out around then too, which is an installment of the Assassin's Creed series, which is,
and then Netflix came out with like 4 different Viking shows.
Netflix came out with a couple of Viking shows. So there was like it was like real hot for Nordic mythology. So hot right now.
It's so in.
So it definitely had like a major moment. Not too long ago.
Right.
But I feel like it's kind of lulled
a
little bit.
It's waning.
I mean, Thor's still be out here, doing stuff, but in general, it's kind of a little bit.
And then we had Black Panther come in. So and Black Panther was kind of like a reimagining of like the Bastet, the Basque goddess,
and now you have Khonshu with Moon Knight.
Oh my God, Moon Knight. Oh my God, I love that movie.
The hippo goddess.
Yes.
Who was the hippo gator god, who was like the bad god.
And it was just so you're seeing sort of these reimaginings of these quote unquote dead spiritualities, and
it's reviving a lot of interest. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily, I wouldn't know who Khonshu. I didn't know Khonshu was the Egyptian god of the moon until Moon Knight.
Right.
Literally, I would have, and I would have never known that. I would have lived blissfully in my ignorance and died that way.
I love you. I'm sorry, I love you. I would have lived blissfully in my ignorance and died that way. What kind of questions we got going on here? Stark, a self-destructive playboy. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but also clearly inventive. I mean, there's later on there's other story arcs that are very much more about how Tony Stark was also a visionary and somebody who was trying to control and maybe too controlling, and which was like the whole Ultron storyline. But anyway, I mean, there's for sure that is definitely one archetype that he embodies, but he also embodies, I think, a few other archetypes, like in terms of in terms of just the affinity for technology and smithing, that reminds me very much of Ogun, right? Like where he's a smith and he is like the innovator who's bringing all the new technology, all the cutting edge tech comes from Tony Stark.
Right.
So like there is that aspect of it too.
Yeah. And I also kind of wanted to tap into, oh my God, I lost it. Oh, I hate when that happens. Oh man, hold on.
Nope.
Oh man, why it went out again?
No, you're good. Just find your thought. It's okay. You came on.
Iron is taken already, so he would fall under that energy. Exactly, that's what we were saying. So like this idea of the spirits of Ogun, Sarabanda, right. Exactly.
Definitely some parallels there. He could be the god of alcohol. He could be the god of recovering alcoholics for sure. That might be a thing too. Is maybe you do, and there literally are people who have found a lot, like something they could relate to in Tony Stark's struggles with alcoholism to their own personal struggles with alcoholism. There are nerds out there who have used that as their own way of being like, you know what? I'm gonna get through it. Like Tony conquered his demons, I'm gonna conquer my demons.
Exactly.
And have used that as a reason to do it. So
exactly
could be
And I'm glad also
could be the god of arrogance. Like if you
you can take him in a lot of different ways. And I'm glad that Perez also mentioned that. It's like there is a category that has like a god of iron already, so he would simply fall under that category.
Right.
Exactly. And so this is something else I kind of wanted to bring up, right? So when we look at pop culture, another thing that they love to do is take creatures, mythological creatures, and just really, really famous characters in our stories, in our spiritual stories, and reimagine those as well. So for example, the Little Mermaid, right? Mermaids, just in general, any kind of dragon, right? Because we could see that dragons are a huge thing in East Asian and in a lot of cultures. Vampires, witches, any of these characters are stuff that we've already got sort of in our commissions and in the sort of categories that we work with. And so it's wonderful to see then pop culture say, all right, well, we're also utilizing that and we're going to give them new images, new identities, new stories that you can then incorporate into your mythos of these characters. Like it doesn't, so now your dragons don't always have to be East Asian dragons. They can be dragons of other different mythos because we've gotten new stories now. Pop culture has given us new mythos to our dragons. Same thing with the mermaids. They don't all have to be a mermaid from friggin' Ireland or wherever. We can now start to reimagine our mermaids as beautiful black sirens, beautiful mythos and different stories that are less about, chasing after a man and more about just murdering them. Sorry. But yeah, witches, vampires.
That wasn't awkward at all.
Was it
weird sitting right next to you for that.
But yeah, I love that story. I do. It's really bad.
Wait, the new
just ideas. No. Just like sirens.
I was like, I'm gonna go.
That.
What?
I love all that stuff. I think it's great.
Kills people
pulling men to their death. No, but I think I love it because of the story. The story of one of my ancestors in Puerto Rico, right? So she drowned.
Oh yeah.
She drowned the conquistadors, and so like whenever I hear of a story of a mermaid or just really any chick that will.
I mean, a lot of them
traditionally
did, like the
yeah.
in the original old school mermaids in like Greek mythology and stuff were like, you better hope you don't see them because you are going to die. You are going to drown, my man. But like, you know, then Disney came along. I was like, oh, let's make it a cute redhead.
Let's make it cute
with a crush on a boy. You know, like.
But like but I think also too was it Hans Christian Andersen? I think it was him that wrote the story.
Right, he was the he was
so she commits suicide. Like it's a whole ass thing.
It's a darker.
It's a much
the original
darker
story is much darker, as are most fairy tales.
But that's the whole point. Fairy tales, folklores, all of these things are nothing more but reimagining of the spirits that either already exist or they take these concepts of money, technology, you know, consumerism, all of these concepts that they know we are putting energy into, we are putting our feelings into, we are investing into, and they're saying, oh, well, those can be spirits too. And I have to say that I would agree with that. I would agree with that. If you are going to put investment of energy and thought and feelings and time into these things like your cell phone, which all of you are doing right now watching this, then you are giving something to the god of technology, the god of cell phones. If you want to create one, and you can, you have every right to do that. Because they already exist, bitch. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Sorry, everyone. I'm kind of poo-pooing my nose because she definitely farted
in my arms. She farted on you.
It's bad. It's not good. It's not good.
Yes, the initiators of the new era, the avatars of the age of Aquarius, the strong and omnipotent gods of robust and powerful personalities. Powerful personalities. Lavetta, thank you so much for saying that, because let's not forget today's modern day celebrities and influencers. Celebrities and influencers, as much as we do not want any part of that bullshit, it's a reality. It's a reality. They are all striving like crabs in a barrel to become the next godlike head in these spaces. And let's not deny that that's not what's happening. Like that's totally
there's
what's
Beyonce
happening.
Candles.
There's Beyonce candles.
There's Saint Beyonce candles.
Okay, it's Beyonce's internet. We know this. Okay, and everyone will be like, "Oh no, but she's just a manifestation of Oshun. Oh no, she's no. That's Beyonce. She's Beyonce as Beyonce, and she's her own thing now. And we've given so much to her that technically, yeah, she's her own thing now. She is. You know." Yes.
Also, you know, whenever I hear the Age of Aquarius, I just think of that end sequence in 40-Year-Old Virgin. You know, where they all sing the song. Do you remember that? This is the dawning of the Age of Aquarius, Aquarius. And it's like really, and they're all in white in a field, and they're like dancing, and it's like amazing. That's like how they end the movie.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
I just crazy. I don't know I don't know what the Age of Aquarius is. That was the first time I heard that phrase, and I can literally never think of anything else now.
And you know what I find? So another thing that I find interesting is, so whenever I do bring up pop culture in terms of creating its own category, its own commission, right? I oftentimes get shut down because, again, a lot of these quote unquote spirits that are in pop culture are spirits that, for the most part, the majority of them are already spirits that take from someplace else, that already take from other cultures and from other spaces, and are kind of just, you know, stepping on the shoulders of giants, for sure, right? But where I get a little peeved is this idea that we cannot offer, you know, we can't offer them their own identity without lumping them into these categories and trying so hard to make these categories stretch out to incorporate these things, when it's okay to say, just give it its own space. Because you would get so mad if I said to you, there's only one God, and all of your gods are nothing but just a manifestation of that one god. You would get so mad because to you, your gods are distinctly different and deserve their own space. And I'm saying, well, gods are a category, and that one god encompasses all of them. You would be angry about that. And so I'm proposing a pop culture commission to give that separateness to these energies, because I think it's important. Like, so I think I saw a comment here about like, you know, Stark and technology and how that technology falls under the category of iron, and so therefore it can just go there. No, because again, we've evolved past that. Like, our computer isn't just iron. It's a lot of different other metals. It's a lot of different other. It's electricity. There's a lot of other things that go into what your cell phone is made out of and what your computer is made out of, and that deserves its own recognition. And I think that it would be really just sort of watering something down. I think it would be really difficult to show all the colors of something when you're just putting it into a single color. Like, there are so many varieties of blue, you know, and like, yeah, it falls under the category of blue, but you should give each blue its own thing. You know what I'm saying?
You know I'm laughing?
Why are you laughing?
Because we've had these conversations about colors before, about like the names of colors and how like literally like, so in a chart of colors, like if you show men like a chart of colors, they'll be like, these are all different shades of blue. They're just, you know, it's a darkish blue and a lightish,
and a woman will be like, no, this is indigo,
whitish
and
blue,
this
and
is
a greenish
periwinkle.
blue. Yeah, exactly. And we're like, they're all just types of blue. So like, you know what I mean? So I think it's also maybe a slight element of like how deep you want to go.
How deep do you want to go with it?
For some people, I feel like I think for some people, you know what? If you think that the general category of iron and tech suffices, then it's like, because it's your belief system, right? So it's for what works for you. Is it suffices to put it under that, and it makes sense to you to put it under that, and maybe you have a subcategory within that you put it further under or whatever. Exactly. And then for somebody else, it might be like, no, I'm just gonna have my own thing of just these are all my comic book peeps.
Right. Exactly. And that's exactly what the last video that I did on TikTok was all about. It's like, how do you want to organize your spirits? How do you want to organize them, right? Because a god of money, you could throw them under fucking elementals because money's made out of paper, or you could throw them under the spirit of iron because the different coins are different metals, or you can throw them under the spirit of the marketplace and business because money deals with commerce. So it's like, where do you put the spirit of money?
There's a great point in the comments, actually. Tech innovation often comes from military innovation, which is true. The development of the internet was a military thing initially. It's cell phones, you know, a lot of these technologies were initially developed for the military and then became widespread consumer products. So, I mean, in a way, you could potentially say that all of technology itself could be categorized under military or war. And again, if that works for you, if you are maybe a more maybe you're kind of like worshiping pantheon that maybe centers around Aries or something like that, and you want to organize things more around that, you could potentially, you know, like not loophole, but like you could argue your way into like including things that other people may very well put as its own distinct category.
Exactly.
And again, it's what I feel like it's what works for you, because it's all powered by, as we know, all of these engines are powered by your beliefs. So it's whatever helps you power your.
And
I loved
how we moved from, should we have pop culture spirits in our commission, to where do they go now?
Where do they go?
Okay, all right, we've accepted that we want them now in our commissions, but like, where do they go?
Of course we
love
them.
that.
I mean, we love pop culture.
I love that. So like Captain America, where the fuck would he go? That's technically an ethnicity, right? So like, do we have an American commission now? Like, what does that look like? Or will he fall under some kind of superhero thing like Superman or any of these other ones where it's not really like a god, it's more a person with superhuman strength or superhuman ability. So it's like, is that its own thing?
Actually, Superman is actually an alien from another planet. He's not a person with superpowers. He's actually an alien who is powered by the yellow sun.
So then do we have a category of aliens? Do we have a commission of aliens? So like literally you can take this anywhere, you guys. You could take this anywhere. And what I'm saying and what we're on here to really just express is that, tradition is cool. Tradition is cool and it has worked. Beautiful. But the beautiful thing about spirituality and the beautiful thing about Espiritismo in particular is that it evolves, it grows, it moves with the culture, it understands the different things that are happening, and it incorporates all of that. And so don't be afraid to do that, because it's really just about energy. It's really just about what you're putting into something and what it produces, what it comes out of. So how you organize it is how you organize it, right? Yeah. But let's not deny that pop culture got a hold of us.
Got a good comment here on Facebook from Lavetta. Pop culture adds more to our lives than an escape from boredom. Authentic portrayals of events and people make us more empathetic, exposing us to new perspectives and building bridges. It can be cathartic, helping us purge strong emotions and work through past experiences. It also helps us connect. I love that. Yes, absolutely. Wholeheartedly
oh my God,
so.
Yes.
Wholeheartedly so. I mean, there have been, and you can go on Tumblr and you can find a lot of like clips of like from comics of, a comic book of superheroes giving like these very impassioned, beautifully written speeches about values of tolerance and things like that, all kinds of things, and incredible concept. And honestly, what you said about how they make us more empathetic, expose us to new perspective, build bridges, and catharsize and purge emotions. In so many ways, spirituality of any kind is also a vehicle to do exactly that.
Exactly.
So if pop culture is help, I personally feel like anything that helps you do that is a spiritual practice.
For sure.
Because it's helping your spirit. Those things are helping your spirit. So if it is a spiritual practice.
And there's nothing wrong too with updating your myths. There's nothing wrong with updating your myths. A lot of those myths that we have in our traditions, they're great and they're wonderful at giving us those archetypal ideas of what love is, what heartache is, what sorrow is, right? And they do that wonderfully within the context of their cultures fucking 7,000 years ago. But here and now, in today's context, in today's culture, pop culture has allowed us to update our myths so that we can still get those stories about love and heartbreak and this and that. But now we have it in a context that makes sense to us, that we can relate to. These characters are much, much more relatable. I love that so much, Lavetta.
And I mean, that's why, for instance, like that's a huge reason why people say that pantheons like the Nordic gods and the Greek gods, why especially those two pantheons in particular have had such a staying power on the human imagination, is because we relate to them, because they're people. They're not just these like perfect beings. And that's also why, for instance, early on in the history of Marvel versus DC, that's why Marvel got the edge, because people could relate to teenage Peter Parker and his problems at school along with fighting supervillains. They couldn't relate to perfect Superman, who is just perfect in every possible way. And literally back in the 50s, they were literally just whatever he needed, go super whatever. And like he has that power all of a sudden, like no. And honestly, even Batman, he would just whip out a gadget that's like, oh, go Batcopter, it's like out of his belt. It's like, no, don't do that. We need you to be fallible in some way, which is why the 80s Superman and Batman are so much more popular now, especially Batman, the Frank Miller stuff, because it made it much more gritty and human and real and relatable. Now you had much more of the exploration of Batman's vengeance, of what motivated him, the murder, the tragedy, the human tragedy that was behind that story, the anger and the vengeance that's behind that story. The fear and insecurity of failing in this mantle that you have now bestowed upon yourself. And you've made yourself like this martyr, and you're so afraid of becoming martyred. All of those things were what made it so much more powerful and relatable.
Oh my God, yeah. Yes, I 1000% agree. And I think another thing that I love about these modern day myths that really is so different from a lot of these ancient myths that we still are rectifying and still trying to work through, is that back then there really was a hard line between good and evil, between villain and hero, between it was a hard line. And I feel like today we are seeing so many more modern day pop culture myths where we start to empathize with the villain. We start to see where the villain is coming from. We start to see what makes a villain a villain.
And we also see our heroes make choices that we have
that are questionable,
that we have questions about. That we're like,
why did you do that?
No,
you're supposed to be the good guy.
If you're supposed to be the good guy, why would you have done that?
It shows so much more nuance to the human
self-destructive playboy that is Tony Stark, for instance.
Exactly. And so we start to look at our spirits, we start to look at our gods, not as these like perfect infallible entities, but as spirits that
as reflections of us,
which begs the question once again, is it the man or the myth that comes first? Because it's like there's so much of it that reflects us. It's like, did they create us in their image, or did we create them in ours? There's a lot of that gets tossed back and forth because of these things, you know. Oh my gosh, look at all of these comments. I love it. Hi, Jessica.
I personally think I think the man came first, because
I think so too.
All of these mythologies are things that explain the world around us and create an explanation of these forces. And I feel like that was, and every culture has their own version of it.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like that. To me, I think that that's one of those things that I think that we can. We create. You know?
I agree.
We can certainly imbue these ideas and these spirits and these concepts and these gods with far more power than we have, especially over time and over eons of belief being charged into their batteries. We can certainly imbue them to be significantly more powerful than we could ever dream of being. But ultimately, I think we are responsible for their creation, just as we are very much responsible for their death. When the last person on earth no longer whispers the name of a god, that god has died.
That's it. That is it. And there's a movie, I think it was called Troy. I think the movie was Troy, where Brad Pitt says this line, and one of the people says to him, one of the women says to him, like, "Aren't you afraid? Aren't you so scared?" He's like, "I'm not scared of the gods, because without me, the gods would not exist." And he meant that in the sense of like, without the belief of man, they wouldn't be anything. So there's no reason to fear them, you know? And I love that sentiment. I really do. Mel's like, hell yeah, I agree with that. I love it. So let's open up the forum to some questions, because we could definitely go on. Trust me, I've got like so many other random thoughts going through my head right now. But let's open the floor up to some questions, some ideas. You know, what are some of your favorite pop culture spirits? What are some of your favorite pop culture spirits? And also, don't be afraid to open it up in terms of we'll probably all be all off of Earth at that time. Exactly. You know, don't be afraid to open this up to novels, you know, folk tales, you know, fairy tales, urban legends, because, you know, things like Edgar Allan Poe, things like Shakespeare, like these are all people and authors. Let's not even get into fucking science fiction, bro. We can even go down that fucking rabbit hole, because when we talk about things like Orwell, and when we talk about things, we're talking about people who wrote shit that is now coming to pass.
Trickster spirits like Puck from Shakespeare.
You know what I'm saying? Like science fiction novels, Frankenstein, you know, the Thousand Leagues Under the Sea, all these science fiction novels that are now coming to pass. It's crazy. It's crazy. So again, that whole predictive text, you know, the creativity of man, once it is out there, it now has a life of its own. Once it is put on paper, once it is sung out loud, once it is expressed in a movie, once it has been heard by the next ear, there's an opportunity now for that thing to have a life of its own. And we've seen it time and time and time again. So do not sleep on these pop culture spirits. Don't sleep on them. Don't do it. The divine goddess. What about the divine goddess? You talking about me, girl? You talking about me? What about the divine goddess? In where in pop culture? Where in pop culture? Do you have an example? She's always down. I love it. I love it. I love it. I can't wait to eat more.
Source is source. Insert battery emoji. Whether we bother to
ponder it or not. What does that mean, Perez? I'm sorry. Source is source. Okay, I think I got it. So, divine source, source is source. It all comes from source. It all comes from source is what I'm getting, right? So, all these various spirits, all these various gods, all of this stuff, however we want to believe it, organize it, express it, at the end of the day, everything kind of falls back, everything kind of funnels back to source. Am I getting that right? The Lucky Ball Monroe and Mae West.
Lucy Ball.
Lucille Ball.
Lucille Ball, Marilyn Monroe, Mae West. He's naming famous pinup girls.
Oh, the pinup women.
The famous pop culture starlets.
I'm gonna tell you. So the pinup women, I love that, Joy. So the pinup women, I'm not gonna lie. I have yet to see them as spirits, but more manifestation of already love goddesses and sensual goddesses that are already in play. But I will say this, many of these influencers that are out here in these, social media streets have definitely utilized the pinup icon as sort of their ideal expression. So they are being utilized. Those images are definitely getting a lot of play right now. Where they're going to go, we don't know. But yeah, love it. Love it. Yeah, source, definitely. Source will always exist. Source will exist whether we believe it or not. Facts, whether we're here or not. Source it was there in the beginning, it'll be there in the end, and it'll be there forever, for sure. We're talking about the manifestations of source, including us, because we are manifestations of source. The earth is manifestation of source. The cosmos is manifestation of source. And all of the gods that we believe in, all of the spirits that we petition to are all manifestations of source and would not be here without source, right? So it's one of those things where at the end of the day, yes, source is what it is. But all that other stuff is all temporal. All of it is temporal, and it's all interconnected, and it all relies on each other. So for spirits to exist, people need to exist. For people to exist, animals need to exist. For animals to exist, nature needs to exist. It's all just interconnected, right? The only thing that doesn't require belief and doesn't rely on anything else for its existence is source, for sure, 1000%. Yes. Yes. Oh, okay, so the divine goddess, things like Barbie, Taylor Swift, the divine mother Kundalini, all of these variations of goddess energy. You can throw Beyonce into that category too, for sure. For sure. As much as I don't want to admit Taylor Swift, but yes, Barbie is a wonderful example of a spirit of pop culture that was no, she didn't start off as a toy. She was a
She was a toy.
No. She started off
off as a toy.
But wasn't she an image in a magazine first? And there was stories little. I could have sworn that was.
Started off as a
but
toy
my point is
the ladies, Ruth Handler's daughter, Barbara.
Okay. So my point is yes, even in pop culture, the toys, the merchandise that we engage in our pop culture world. Yes. Chucky. Fucking Chucky. All y'all bitches are afraid of Chucky. Every single one of you on this live right now watching this live is terrified of Chucky, and you know it. And you know he is nothing but a toy. But is he though? You know what I'm saying?
The idea of an automaton.
The idea of this toy is absolutely terrifying to the point where they have the horror movies, all of that stuff around this doll. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. Sorry, what am I saying? I've always seen pinups as strong women expressing themselves as they felt like it. Yes, Mel. Yes. Joy, you heard that about the pinup? Strong women always expressing themselves. Yes. Oh my God, the My Buddy doll. Oh my God. I locked it up in the closet after I saw Child's Play.
It's just a doll that looks a lot.
Yeah,
like
they had the My Buddy and the kid's sister, and they were dolls that are pretty tall, and they kind of looked. Yeah, they were kind of creepy. And when Chucky came out, a lot of people.
So Chucky was just somebody who saw the My Buddy doll and was like, "What if this thing could be turned into a horror movie?"
Yeah, seriously. Oh my gosh. You guys, great contributions. I love it. Woo, I'm hungry.
Hi. What does that have to do with me?
Nothing, I'm just hungry.
You're looking at me. I mean, I know I'm a snack.
Why are you like this?
Ew,
whatever. Whatever. It's the era of the doll in the houses, museums, basements. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I did a video about the Indian dolls in the Museum of Natural History that my father took me to go see when I was like 5 or 6 years old. I was really, really young. And like, I remember being in the little like store of the Museum of Natural History, and I saw this whole rack of Indian dolls, and I swore to God up and down that these Indian dolls were talking to me. They were straight up talking to me. And these dolls were saying, "Get me out of here. Like, I'm trapped. Get me out of here." You know what I mean? And I remember saying to my dad, "Dad, can we buy all the dolls? They want, they want to come home." And he's like, "No, honey." Because first of all, it's the Museum of Natural History, and that doll was like $35 just for one. And
that was back in the day.
Yeah, and that was back in the day. And he was just like, "No." And then I remember we went home, and I remember me and my best friend Ginia, we were both like 6 or 7 years old. Me and my best friend Ginia decided to fill our backpack with crackers, socks, and her piggy bank of like $8. And we were like, "We're going to run away, and we're going to go to New York City, and we're going to rescue all of the Indian dolls." And that shit was like an actual voyage. Like, we were ready and going to do it. You know what I'm saying?
As ready as two
7-year-olds can possibly be. We didn't make it very far, though. My mother caught us and beat the shit out of both of us. And that was that. But like, it was definitely one of those situations where I feel you, Lavetta. It's like the dolls have their own sort of essence to them, and we talk about this a lot actually in spiritism and in spiritualism and
Did you remember that one like really creepy doll from when we were kids? I was on that TV show, and it was like the doll that had like the like tribal mask and had like the little spear.
Oh my God, the 70s. It was like a
demonic looking, you know?
Like,
you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember, like, if you see a photo of it now, you still are like
traumatized. It was a traumatizing situation. But we actually have this theory in spiritualism and in a lot of our cultures that dolls are, or we call them muñecas, right? So dolls are wonderful vessels for spirits. So anything that has a face, specifically anything with eyes, if there is an image of a doll or a teddy bear or just something that has eyes, make a perfect vessel to house a spirit. And so it is not uncommon. It is not uncommon at all to see small children who are scared of dolls. And a lot of psychologists will say, well, no, it's because of the face and like sometimes the symmetry and blah, 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 and they make up all of these like random psychoactive fucking excuses of why a child will be scared of a doll. But the reality is that there may potentially be a spirit being housed in that doll, either by accident or by intention. And so, yeah, it's...
How do you have the spirit in a doll by accident?
Well, that can happen a lot of different ways. I mean, we can get into all of that, but like that could potentially happen just through transport, just through handling. That could happen a bunch of different ways. Yeah, that can happen a bunch of different ways. But the likelihood of that happening is much more rare than actually an intentioned, doll.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, do I need to be scared of Toys R Us?
No.
Except, rest in peace, Toys R Us. Oh God, I miss it.
All the paranormal shows do the dolls, yeah, for sure. Because they have the ability to trap personas. Anything with eyes have the ability to trap.
Oh yeah, now there's the Annabelle. Now there's that. That's
the Annabelle,
the new Chucky, basically.
The new Chucky.
That's like for our generation. That's the super scary. Oh, and now they got the Megan one, the one that's like a robot. Now they have that doll, the horror movie, the Megan doll. Remember
the Megan doll?
We gotta watch that. Actually,
no, we
that
don't.
Really weird and creepy.
That's the one thing I'm not cool with. I don't do the doll movies. I love scary stuff. I do.
Really?
I love scary stuff, but I don't do the doll movies. No.
I did not know that about you. I do not fuck with the doll movies.
No. And I love clowns, y'all. I love clowns.
She loves horror. I figured that would be right up your alley.
Yeah, you would think. No, I don't fuck with the doll movies because, like, legit, when I was a kid, dolls used to blink at me. Dolls used to talk at me. I would hear, like, I would see a doll and I would know, like, everything about. No, that's too real. That hits too close.
Yeah. So going to the American Girl Doll Museum must have been terrible.
It was absolutely terrible.
Half these dolls are racist.
I can't. I married him. I did. Twice. I fucking married him twice. And the second time I committed 7 lifetimes to this motherfucker.
You really asked for it.
I really did.
You really asked for it.
Oh my God. Half of these dolls are racist.
Can you imagine that if you walked in? Like they were just hurling like terrible, just racial slurs. These dolls on the shelves,
Oh my God, I can't.
Like Katie, the World War II survivor with the crutches, is just like, I had to survive World War II just to see brown people get the same rights. I was like, damn it, Katie, what? I don't know the names of these dolls or their stories, but I'm just saying, like, that would have been crazy, right? That would have been fun. That would have been funny. I don't know. My mind works in bits. So somebody tells me a scenario and I'm like, how does that become a bit?
Oh my God. Anyway, you guys. Have yourself a pop culture commission. Have yourself an alien commission. Have yourself a superhero commission, a pinup doll commission. Do whatever you need to do to organize your spirits, to organize the energies that work through you, the energies that you work with. Because let's not forget, too, in Espiritismo, these spirits aren't just spirits that you, quote unquote, work with to heal and to do. They are part of your personality. Right. They are part of who you are, and they are a part of your elevation and your process of spiritual growth. And so if you see a pop culture spirit, or if you relate to something that brings you joy and that elevates you and somehow makes you a better person, by all means, incorporate that. Even if that means just giving a previous spirit that you work with a different take or a different, view or reimagining. Cool.
Yeah. Maybe within reason, though.
Within reason.
Don't start worshiping like that, like the dude from the Sandman with the mouth for eyes.
Why not though?
The serial killer guy. Because then,
or like that creepy guy from Labyrinth.
How do you worship him? Just by going around becoming a serial killer yourself? No, don't do that. Like, As long as you do it without harming yourself or other people, within limits, right? Within limits.
Yes.
Within limits. Within those.
You don't. Well, that's
within
the whole
those
point.
ethical and moral parameters.
It's about spiritual evolution.
Yeah.
You're not going to be working with energies that are, harmful and the villains and all that stuff. You wouldn't be doing that anyway. But
yes, for legal reasons, I still feel compelled to clarify that you should do the right thing, and we are not encouraging you to do the wrong thing. Legally clear.
Oh, thank you so much, Lavetta. I appreciate that. I don't consider myself that, but I'm so glad that you think of me that way. That's really beautiful. Thank you so much. And it's not even so much like it's not even so because again, these concepts aren't new. Like there are so many spiritualists who work with superheroes. Like I know a spiritualist who has what's her name? What's the female Captain America chick? Like she's got the American, or she's got that star. What's her name?
Yeah.
The female one. That's in
Wonder
Woman
from DC.
It's from DC. Yeah.
That's
so
not...
whatever.
Okay.
Okay.
That's not the female Captain America. I'm gonna break these glasses again, and then retape them again, and then put them on.
This is why I need him, because I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to this. But anyway, it's that female version from the other universe. In the other universe. Anyway, right? It's the other universe because one is from Marvel and one is from DC, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Okay.
You could have just said the female Superman. That would have been much more of a better equivalent, because she basically is the lady Superman. Like she's
so that character. Anyway, my point is that I have a spiritualist friend who has her on his altar. I have another spiritualist friend who works with like Disney. I have another spiritualist friend who, so like these aren't out of the fucking ballpark types of ideas. They understand the value of the human collective consciousness, putting energy into personas and characters so that then those personas and characters have a life and energy of their own that then you as a spiritualist can utilize.
There are people that follow the Klingon religion.
There's people who follow the Klingon religion. There are people who get married with the Star Trek Klingon stuff.
You want to hear an adorable story?
The Lord of the Rings languages. Let's not forget about that. People who speak fluent languages of Elven and all that. So like these aren't outlandish ideas. These are things that are very real that people practice naturally just because they're special interests for them. And they find joy and spiritual elevation and growth from them. Yeah. So by all means, do it. Do it if that's what you want to do. No one should talk any shit about that at all. Yeah. None whatsoever. Or write your own play. Hell yeah. Word up. Word up.
Oh, and then I mean, speaking of writing your own play, then there's the whole world of fan fiction of these things, where in some cases some fans have literally elevated these characters to actual godhood.
Yep.
It happens. So like there's so and that's again another case where literally you are now shaping the story and creating your own version of it and powering your own belief into it, into your specific version of this.
Exactly. Anyway, guys, oh my gosh, this was so much fun. Oh, honey, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
I love you. Thank you. And you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. We love you guys so much. We hope you had a wonderful holiday, and we hope you have a wonderful new year. Make lots of resolutions. Stay true to your plans. Maybe adopt some new spirits, right?
Or puppies.
And just have a good time, you guys. For real, have a good time. We love you so much. Take it easy. And always remember, this is how we grow, you guys. Bye.